Okay, we are live now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of Virtual Indie Book Fest. My name's Andrea, and you're here on my channel, Book Ramble. And today I am here with an amazing panel called Scary Stories We Tell in the Dark with two great authors, Castro and Sylvester Barzey. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Sylvester, you can go ahead first.
Okay, my name's Sylvester Barzey. I am a Army veteran, a father, a husband, and a full-time indie author. I mostly write horror and fantasy that showcase strong Black women within those genres, and been writing for about 5 years. I'm just really happy to be here.
Well, my name is Castro, Violet, and I am the author of The Queen of the Cicadas from Flame Tree Press and Goddess of Filth, Creature Publishing, and soon Mestiza Blood, which drops in January. And this is my full-time gig. This is what I do. I write erotic horror, science fiction, dark fiction in general.
To start things off, I would love if you tell us a little bit more about your books that you're here with the festival with, Goddess of Filth and Stitches.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I didn't say this just now, but I am a Mexican-American woman, Chicana from South Texas. So a lot of my books are set in South Texas. There's not a whole lot of representation when it comes to Mexican Americans in speculative fiction or science fiction. So it's something that is important to me. So Goddess of Filth here is a coming of age story. 5 girls living in San Antonio, and they want to have some fun, kind of like The Craft, they're a group of girls. So they decide to hold a seance before one of their friends goes off to college. Well, they don't expect what answers their call from the seance. But sometimes possession isn't all that bad, and it's not always the entity that's the villain in the story. So that's Goddess of Filth.
You had me at The Craft. Stitches is a collection of short stories, mostly some that I've published in other anthologies when I first started writing. And I just wanted to gather all the work that I've done and put them in one place for my readers. I have ghost stories in there, zombie fiction, because that's my main wheelhouse. I write the Planet Dead series, so I focus on post-apocalyptic. And I have a zombie story that I wrote for Black Fae Day. So there's fairy zombies and serial killers, everything that ties into horror I've got in that collection.
For you guys as authors, what is it about horror as a genre that kind of interests you?
For me, I think horror is it's the one genre that can have aspects from other genres without losing itself. You can have comedy and you can have action and you can have romance in horror, and it's still going to be a horror story. So I really love that it doesn't handcuff me to one thing. And I also just think that horror in itself is just about survival and just overcoming the odds, and that's just something that's always spoken to me. So
No, I think that's really as well, overcoming the odds and really survival, because, as a woman of color, there are a lot of aspects to life that often do not go discussed. They don't, and there's not a lot of outlets. But what I like about horror is that you can reach into those dark recesses and those darker subjects, such as being the other, or mental health, or harassment. There's so many things that you can talk about in horror and really get a message across. And I like that. You can explore the darker parts of life because They are part of life. And for some of us, even more so. For some of us, we have more to overcome to achieve what we want to achieve. And our past generations had huge obstacles.
Yeah.
So touching on that in horror, there's a freedom in that I like.
I mean, I feel like as a reader, that's something that I really like about horror as well. There's like you were saying, guys were saying freedom to like just explore so many things. I feel like
Yeah.
the unknown means so many different things to like different people, and just reading those perspectives, I think, is just amazing. But I think that when people think of horror, they kind of think of it as like a really visual heavy genre.
Mhm.
As authors, how do you maintain tension and pacing while still staying descriptive?
Oh God. I am not that technical. That's the editor's job. I basically just like get an idea and I just write it. I just go for it. And then I kind of, okay, this drags a bit, this slows. For those kind of technical-ish things, I rely on beta readers and like editors, because sometimes as an author, you'll just see it so many times, you'll read it so many times that you lose perspective. And for me, I like to focus on the actual storytelling and the story. For me, that's what excites me and gets me going. But I definitely, when I have an idea in my mind, I just kind of go. And then that's where it's nice to have other people come in and say, as a reader, this didn't work for me, or this slows it down, or this detracted from it.
Yeah, I'm not too technical with everything I do, but as far as like horror being a visual thing, I think it is very visual, but the sense of like fear and dread is something that can happen without that imagery at all. Like you can freak yourself out just going to your living room at 3 a.m. and it's dark. So I think when I'm trying to write, I just want to set that tone or create that path to trick your mind into feeling uncomfortable and into worrying about these fictional characters just as much as you would worry about yourself walking down an alley or something. So it's mostly just relying on the subconscious and relying on people's minds to just bring them into the story. That's just all I try to do.
As a little tiny follow up to that, how do you do that? How do you get into people's minds, into the subconscious as a writer?
I've always like thought that your best reader is yourself. You're mostly just writing for yourself. You're trying to tell yourself an amazing story. So sometimes I just sit down and I'll think of the scenario and I'd be like, what would surprise me or what would really freak me out? Or like some people have things that trigger them a lot. Like I don't like things messing with eyes or like ripping fingernails. So I'll be like, yeah, that would be really good right now if something just took out her eyeball. So so things like that. Anything that's gonna like get me. And if I can't think of it, I'll go to my wife. I'll be like, hey, how would this make you feel? So, yeah, so I'll do that.
Do you have any, can you share anything that you do to kind of get into the reader's subconscious?
I like mostly what I do is because when I was growing up, I wasn't much of a reader. I was really into horror movies. So like I'll set the tone for me. Like if I want to write about werewolves or write about anything, I just submerge myself in that with movies and I'll make soundtracks and things like that. And like I just try and trigger the emotion I want in my readers within myself. And I go from there.
No, absolutely. I grew up, watching all the 70s, 80s, 90s horror films. And I definitely, a lot of my books I see before I kind of get the words, like you just get that image or that vision, like I would see on a TV screen. And it just like, oh, okay. And then the dialogue. And so, yeah, I definitely see it in my mind as if it was like a film or something I was watching, because they do say, hey, show, don't tell when it comes to writing. So, okay, the best way to show is to have that visual. So I kind of have that in my mind, like, how would that look? How would that jump scare be?
For V, Goddess of Filth is very raw and explosive, but like distinct, seductive bloodiness. What made you want to focus on a tale about like bodily autonomy and feminine rage?
Um, because it is a coming of age story, and when you're a young girl, you're 15, 16, 17, and a young woman going to college, you're still figuring yourself out. But not only are you figuring yourself out, you also have everything that everyone is telling you about who you should be, your identity, and all the expectations. And it can be a lot, it can be overwhelming. And especially being a brown woman, like, I remember growing up, and you know, in some ways, not a lot is expected of you, and not a lot. You don't always. It's easy to internalize that, not expect a lot out of yourself, because again, if you don't see it, how can you achieve it? That representation is very important. So I wanted to capture that rage that I felt, wanting to achieve things, wanting to see things, but not knowing how to get there, or if it was even possible, because I saw so few brown women achieving those things. So it was just kind of like a huge mix of, growing up, my identity, my culture, just everything. And again, wanting to see that reflected in fiction.
That was one of the things that I enjoyed most about your novel. I love when female characters or feminine characters are just allowed to be angry. Like, that's like
Yes,
one of my
because
favorite things.
it's a very natural response, and men are perceived as like strong and tough, and it's a very admirable, like, oh yeah, he's kicking ass, and women do it, and it's like, that ain't cute, girl. But you're like, no, it's real. It's very
Exactly.
real.
Sylvester, Stitches takes us on a wild journey through a variety of short horror stories. Throughout your writing, are there any themes that you find yourself coming back to, and why?
Um, I feel like I go to betrayal a lot. Uh, just the act of betrayal is always just something that fascinates me and kind of scares me. Like, I think I get it from like Scream and Scooby Doo. Just like, I love the moment when they unmask the culprit, and then it's just someone that you trusted, someone that you went through this dark journey with this whole time, and they were the monster in the dark the whole time. So I tend to visit that trope a lot in a lot of my stories. I just do it differently. Like, it might not be a serial killer. It might have been a ghost this whole time. It might have just just thinking somebody is one way and that they're out there to help you and that they're guiding you, and then you just find out the whole time they were plotting your downfall. That's something that I love to visit and to just put in my stories.
Yeah, I think like a good plot twist is always delicious to read as a reader.
Yeah.
But flipping that a little bit, are there any things that you don't want to like explore out, like they're like off limits that you don't ever want to touch with like a 10-foot pole?
um like in post-apocalyptic fiction, they do a lot of kind of like, I don't know, like kind of rape-esque things, and like I'll have that, but I don't visit it like some authors do. Like, I don't want to write rape scenes, and I don't want to. If I talk about rape, it's mostly like the survivor coming back for revenge or something. I don't do it to build a character or anything. So I don't like that aspect of our genre, so, or the post-apocalyptic genre. So I try and stay away from that. I don't enjoy it.
I'm gonna go to an viewer question really quickly from Storage Shelves and say, are there any elements you haven't explored yet in your writing but would like to?
I explore everything. So, what have I not explored that I want to? Ooh, I don't know because I have so many manuscripts that I need to finish and they explore everything. But I mean, I'm sure there's something, but I pretty much, have a wild imagination and try to explore as many things as possible.
Anything that I haven't explored is probably because I don't have a personal interest in it. But like I've never really enjoyed werewolves, but I would like to like write a werewolf story. Like I remember a few years back, Kendall had this thing that was like Kendall Worlds, and you could write inside of pre-established universes, and there was one for Vampire Diaries, and I wanted to do this whole like series where it was just about werewolves rebuilding themselves in the UK and things like that. So I don't I don't necessarily love werewolf fiction, but I would like to take a crack at it maybe somewhere down the road.
Awesome. In both these books, music plays a big role. What's on your writing playlist?
Again, I have such diverse taste. I have everything. So, I really and it depends on the scene. So, oh God, I have like Beethoven, I have Danzig, I have Sarah McLachlan. I have you know, like lots of 80s. I love the 80s. Um I mean, just everything really. Yeah, pretty much everything. And I like to span time. So could be 70s rock, could be metal, could be jazz. So in a vampire story I wrote, um, I talk about Miles Davis's Kind of Blue because it's absolutely one of my favorite songs. Um, I love Metallica, so I like putting Metallica. I wrote a story to Slayer's Seasons of the Abyss, which was really fun, and I loved writing it. It's about a demon in Mexico. So I have everything.
Yeah, my writer's playlist is just like all over the place. I normally always have Nickelback on it and Snow the Product, and but yeah, it just jumps around. It really depends on the story and what mood I'm really going for. Uh, I wrote a short story to like Cardi B once, and I've always
Uh,
wanted to just like sit down and write a story for like a whole bunch of Nickelback songs, but I've never gotten around to it. So.
What part of the writing process does the playlist come up in? Is it like before in the outlining stage? Is it already when you're in and writing? Like where does it come up?
For me, it's like sometimes I'll get an idea and I'm just so like amped up about it. I'm like, I'm gonna make a playlist for it, and I'll do that. And then sometimes it'll be like I'll sit down and I just can't bring myself to write. And that's when I'm just like, well, I'll make a playlist and then I can just play that, and that'll normally get me in the mood and get me hyped up to continue the story. So it like I do a lot of things. I'll make a playlist and I'll make a cover, anything that just keeps me enthused about the project to keep going.
I usually like what we to revisit what we said before, where I kind of see the story and the visuals before, and I almost hear the music as if like you do on screen, like
Yeah.
how that music would play into it, or just like the pacing. So like when I wrote the story to Season of the Abyss, the pacing of the story matches the song, just like the slow build up, then the like when the tempo kind of reaches this crescendo, and it just that's where the action is. And so I yeah, I'll see it and hear it first, and then I'll go back and write it, and I'll listen to the song over and over as I'm writing and editing and stuff. But yeah, it's usually before.
I ask because like I feel again with horror and horror film and horror movies, I mean TV, there's like I feel you can recognize like the iconic soundtrack. They're just
Mm-hmm.
iconic like noises that you can
Absolutely.
immediately recognize something in.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering how that translated over into writing. So that's really interesting to hear. I think both of these books have really great gore scenes as well. Are there any specific gore scenes in a book or a movie or TV show that have impressed you or impacted you in your writing?
Hellraiser. Hellraiser, absolutely. And when I was really small, obviously The Exorcist, because she just frightened me to death. She just was like, ah! I mean, that visual, you just don't forget the flashes of the demon face. Like, it is just so. Oh, you have the Exorcist t-shirt. I forgot. That like flash, of her face, of the demon's face. It just really catches you and catches your imagination. And but Hellraiser, absolutely. I mean, that I love me some Cenobites.
um, I would definitely say like Romero movies and zombie movies have always been something that I would look to for gore, like just the zombies themselves with their bodies decaying, but then what they do to human beings who are alive and just like tearing them apart. Like in Day of the Dead, I love the scene when the lieutenant just gets torn apart by those zombies when he's messing with Bub. I love that scene. So um, those are the movies that I look to. Uh, like I'm a big fan of Scream. I love that. I recently read what was it, Southerners Book Club to Vampire Slaying, and I love the scene where like the little old lady attacks the main character in her driveway and like bites her ear off, and like I listened to the audiobook and I was like, this is amazing. I want to do this. So I think sometimes I'll see things in movies and I'll hear things in books and I'll just see if I can pull it off within my own work. And so, yeah, those things stand out to me.
Lots of spooky fun. So I just wanted to follow up on that. You're talking about zombies and how you love zombies. What do you think of like the evolution of like the zombie as a genre, or not a genre, but as a trope throughout like cinema or books? I feel like it's kind of shifting and changing, especially with like this pandemic. I think it's going to change even more.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think the evolution of the genre is amazing. Like it always seems like the genre has gotten to a point where it just dies off and then something just like rejuvenates it and brings it back to life, like 28 Days Later and The Walking Dead and things like that. But zombies as a whole have always just been like the backdrop to tell a story about a broken society and people. And I think lately they've moved from being the backdrop to being the center of the story. Like they've become more intelligent. They've become love interests, like in Warm Bodies. And yeah, so I think a lot of creators have looked at the backdrop and been like, zombies are very interesting characters and we could bring them to the forefront. So I'm intrigued by how the stories are changing, and I love zombies evolving. I love smart zombies. I love fast zombies. Like I have people that argue with me or tell me slow zombies are more terrifying, and I don't understand that, because like if a fast zombie came running at me right now, I'd be terrified. I want to be terrified by this guy that's about to take 30 minutes to come to me.
I think I snorted it.
That's true, though. That's true. I have the visual in my mind.
That's just always been my thought process. Like,
I know.
V, you mentioned The Exorcist, which has very famous like possessions and all that kind of stuff. And in Goddess of Filth, there are also, I believe, you call it inhabitations.
Yeah.
There's something about like this other force coming into somebody's body that like interests you as a writer and a watcher, I guess you could say.
Well, yeah, because from the book is about reclaiming your power as a woman, and often we think of power as being external, that there are demons that are powerful, there are ghosts that are powerful, there are aliens that are powerful. But what about our own power? And what if this possessor or this entity or inhabitant is all powerful, but in return, you find your own power. You know, it's all about, that's what I like about it, is it's about power, internal power, and finding that.
Sylvester, how did you decide what stories to include in Stitches? And were there any challenges in kind of like curating that?
Really, I just kind of asked my wife. I like any good husband, like whenever I have an issue or I can't find something, I just ask my wife. So I went to her and I was just like, hey, I want to make a short story collection. Which one of my short stories did you enjoy? Because like when I write things, I'll let her read it first and then I'll get her feedback. So I just named a few of them and reminded her of the story, and I was like, did you like this? And she was just like, no, I didn't. I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, she was definitely my soundboard for the things that I wanted to put into that book. So
is your wife somebody that you kind of go to first when you're writing or during your process? Is she like your first kind of right-hand woman?
Yeah, she's my best friend. That's why she's the wife. So like, yeah, I go to her for everything. I go to her for like ideas. I probably should have went to her for names for my first book because I'm terrible at naming people. Someone was named Sue in my book, so like, she's just like, these names are boring. So like, we wrote a book together, and that was a little stressful. Because like when I'm writing a book by myself, she's just like, okay, yeah, you can do this and that. But with her name on the book, she's like, no, we're not doing that. Stop. So yeah, I go to her for everything. Like I couldn't get this done without her. So.
Aw, V, is there anybody that you go to like right away to kind of look at your writing besides beta readers?
Oh.
Just me, sola. I'm alone.
Awesome. But going off my other question, V, were there any what were some of the challenges that you encountered while writing Goddess of Filth?
You know, like I said, it started off as a short story, and I just wanted to do my heritage justice because it is based on a real Aztec deity and Aztec mythology, and I just wanted to make sure I did my ancestors justice. But other than that, the story just flowed. It just was like boom, 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 boom.
Awesome.
Yeah, so lucky. It did not a lot of problems. Sorry.
I cut you off. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
For you both, what is that research process like while, you know, when you're going to be writing these things about inspired by like real life events or real life people or folklore? What is that research process like?
For me, because I'm definitely like visual and audio, so it's a lot of like YouTube and a lot of podcasts and things like that. I'll just search my subject matter and find some things. Like I like to incorporate like true crime and things like that. So I'll look up cases and just get a feel for it and then twist it into my stories.
I have a lot of books on like Aztec mythology, the history of the conquest. I have biographies like of Cesar Chavez and different people that are mentioned in my books. So a lot of other nonfiction, mostly nonfiction books, historical books.
Is there, for both of you, is there a scene that you've written that you're like, dang, I'm amazing at this. Like, this is my favorite thing I've ever written. Like, whoa, like
everything I've written. I'm kidding. No, I have no idea. I just, you know what? I'm just really happy I get to do this. So I have no idea what's the best of I have no idea.
When I wrote my first novel, Planet Dead, I thought that it was an amazing scene. I wrote this character's death, and I wrote it to like this one song that I kept playing. I think it was like Black Tears or something. And I was like, this is going to be amazing. People are going to cry. And then nobody cared. No. I haven't heard one person talk about that character's death. So, and it's been like 4 or 5 years.
Going off of that, though, how do you deal with like reader expectations and then like outcome? Like, how do you kind of manage what you expect the reader will react and their actual reaction? How do you kind of compartmentalize that as a writer going forward?
It's no longer mine. Once I'm done, it's done. I mean, you can't really, I'm not one of these people that goes after reviewers. I try not to read reviews. Um, like if someone tags me or like Booklist or probably, something big, or people tag me, then I'm like, oh, thank you. And I might check it out, but usually I still won't read the review because I feel like, but you create it, it goes out, it's no longer yours. I don't have any, it's done. So it is what it is. It's
Yeah,
for you. It's for you.
I'm pretty much the same thing. I'm the same way. I feel like however I felt about the book, it no longer matters. It's how they're going to interpret it and what they're going to get from it. Everyone's going to take something different from the book. Everyone's going to have their own favorite parts and whatnot. As far as reviews go, I still dive into reviews. I'll read my reviews whether they're good or bad. Because like sometimes the bad reviews, I'll take something from it, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, maybe I should work on that for the next time. And then sometimes I'll be like, oh, they're just a little hater. I don't care. So I'll just move on.
V, you mentioned that Goddess of Filth started as a short story. And I was wondering what other elements of the story changed throughout the writing process. Was there just something that originally was in the plot that completely got cut off or changed drastically in the final version?
No, I just took that core short story, and because it was already a long short story, and just expanded it, like went more into detail of each character. I added another villain. I think it's just when you have a short story and you start to make it into a novel, a novella or a novelette or a novel even, and you have that base, those bones, you just flesh it out. It just happened organically. I'm really lucky. It just flowed. And so it didn't change drastically. It just became what it should have been or what it should be. And it is.
Yay. Sylvester, Stitches is a short story collection. Are there any of the stories within Stitches that you would like to expand one day into a full novel?
Yeah, there are probably a few. I know there's one that's called Camp Lanier or Lake Lanier, and it's about there's a really creepy lake in Georgia called Lake Lanier. It's always trending when somebody dies or goes missing. It's weird. So basically, the city, I forget the name of the process, but they took this community, which was primarily Black, and they evicted everybody or paid them off and everything. And then they flooded it, and now it's this huge lake. But the town's still under there. Like you can see like a park. There's like bleachers from their old stadium and stuff. So every summer people go there and they go swimming, and some people don't come back. So it's really weird. And I would like to take the short story concept, because it's just the short story itself. It's all about these kids waiting to I've never been to summer camp. I'm just basing it all off of television because my mama wasn't about that. So yeah, they're standing on the pier and they're waiting to be tossed in to learn how to swim or to swim, and they're just telling each other about the lake and how creepy it is, and then it just slowly starts getting creepier. So I want to expand that into a whole little book, kind of like Get Out meets Friday the 13th or something.
That sounds awesome. That I would read that. That That sounds good.
Sounds incredible. Yes, lots of fun. And I'm like,
You should totally
where
do
did
that.
I pre-order, man?
Yeah, totally do it.
Work on it then.
Katie Reed says, can't wait to check out some of your books, Castro and Barzey. You can find all the links, I think, down below. So go to that. As I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. As authors. And for the people watching, do you have any advice on writing in horror and writing like self-published or small press books and just the entire process?
I mean, I think just before I did this, I did a 5-minute video, it's a pep talk for a podcast. And, I think one of the best pieces of advice is just if it's your passion and you love it and you want it, you persevere. Failure will happen, rejection will happen. But what, will set you apart is, can you take that rejection? Can you take that failure? And can you grow from it? Can you accept it? Can you become more because of it, as opposed to letting it stop you and taking criticism or critiques and in a positive way? Yeah, of course, you're human. Your feelings are gonna get hurt, but it's just a part of the business. And I would say persevere. And as far as where and how you want to publish, it just depends on how long you want to wait. I mean, I have an agent, but it took 4 novels. 4 novels. Okay. That's a lot of words, but I wanted it and I decided that's what I was going to do. So again, it just depends on what career you envision for yourself. Really, I think that's what you need to do, is say, who am I as a writer? And then you can build on that.
I think people, when it comes to writing, sometimes they talk themselves out of it. They make it bigger than they need, or like, especially for self-publishing, they'll get wrapped up in the marketing or how much money it needs or how perfect it has to be. Nothing has to be perfect. Like writing is definitely like a on the job training type thing. You just have to do it. So I feel like if you have a story in you, just write it, just put it out there, and yeah, people might hate it, but you learn from that and you move on to the next one. And that's just it. It's just one project after another. Like that one was bad, this one's going to be great. And this one was good, and this one's going to be great. You just got to keep pushing forward. And like I like small presses, and I love self-publishing, and I really think for like minorities, self-publishing is a new wave. There's no one that's going to gatekeep you. There's no one that's going to be like, this story isn't right now, or there's no readers for this. There's readers for this.
Yeah.
You create it and you put it out there and you find your readers. So that I'm a big supporter of it, and I think everyone should at least try it once. And if you get burnt out or you get to a point where this isn't for you, it might not be, but at least you tried and you figured it out.
Absolutely. My first book was self-published.
Yeah.
Is there anything specific to horror, the horror genre, that you would give as advice? Is there anything that people should be watching out for when they're writing, that you might have any advice on?
I think for, and this is mainly for white writers writing people of color, do a little research. Try to stay away from like stereotypes and tropes. And if you are going to have someone who, for example, I wrote a short story for an anthology where she's a Latina, she's a musician, but she's working as a maid part-time in a hotel, because when a lot of times people think Mexicans, they think, oh, domestic work, cleaners. But that's why I wrote it, because I wanted to reclaim that. So, and obviously she's a badass singer and guitarist as well. But, you know, if you're going to write a trope and you're going to write people of color, just do your research. Don't make it a stereotype. You know, for me, you know, because I am a Latina, I'm writing things to reclaim those stereotypes, to reclaim those labels, to take the power back, you know, from what's been taken. And, you know, but I think you just need to, yeah, do your a little research and be open-minded when it comes to writing people of color.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, because I've seen stories where like the first person or the first black person you meet came out of jail or something, or is a rapper, and I was like, where does this come from? Like, you don't meet people like this. It doesn't happen like that all the time, and there's a lot of stereotypes that are put into books. But as far as my advice for anyone that's going into horror, just, I don't know. It, like, I feel like the horror community or horror fans is just kind of like this niche little group. Like, you love the same thing. You love horror, so just express it. Just show people why you like body horror, or why you like supernatural things. Just, it's something you're passionate about, and then just dive into it and have fun with it. Have a lot of fun with it. That's what I think people should do.
Great, awesome. Are there any horror writers or horror things that you're watching today that you think people should read or should watch, to kind of gain more insight into how the genre works today?
There's so many. I mean, you go on Twitter and Instagram, there's like so many amazing, like the indie horror community, it's just like exploding with talent. It's exploding. You have some amazing trans writers, you have so many women of color, you have, I mean, just so many. I can't even begin to. But I would say, yeah, Twitter is a great place to find a lot of writers, and Instagram as well. The hashtag, you know, you can just hashtag like indie horror authors of Instagram, and there's so many great writers out there. Haley Piper, Gabino Iglesias, Sina Paleo, Sonora Taylor, um, Larissa Glasser, someone I love, Linda Addison. Uh, there's just so many.
I'm terrible with names, so I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, Twitter, like, I wasn't big on Twitter at all. My wife was like huge on Twitter, and then I started tweeting just to bother her. And and then I just discovered like the horror community and things. And one thing I think for horror fans that they should, if you love like horror movies, you should definitely get the Shudder app. There's movies on there that are amazing. They just started the Slasher, season 4, and me and my wife are really loving that right now. And on Twitter, we're trying to do this like horror movie challenge. So it's like 100 horror movies in 92 days. So we've been trying to do that because it has to be like movies you've never seen before. And for some, like, most horror fans, like, we've watched a lot of things. So yeah, so it's just I don't know. I definitely suggest Twitter. I definitely suggest just trying something. Like, you're going through Netflix, just pick a movie that you haven't seen and enjoy it. And some movies that I love were Get Out. I love the Scream series. Oh, oh, there's just too much. There's so much out there.
Definitely. I really enjoy Shudder as well. I think it has so much like global cinema. I think global horror is so interesting. It's such a great way to like kind of diversify like what you think horror means or is. But yeah, I love Shudder. But going off of movies, which one of your books do you think would you want to see adapted one day into a series or a film?
Well, I would love The Queen of the Cicadas, absolutely, to La Reina de las Chicharas. I want that book absolutely 100% universe. And I would love this one as well. I think this, all of them. I would like to see as many of my stories on the screen as possible to reach as many Chicanas and everyone out there. But I really want, when I was younger, I didn't see myself represented. And I want that to change for Mexican Americans.
Yeah, most definitely. I would love my zombie series Planet Dead to just, if Netflix or Shudder would like to make a zombie movie or series of movies, I mean, they're already doing it. But if those fail, I have something. So I would love to see Planet Dead. And like, I write it for all the strong women in my life, my sisters, my mom, my wife, my future daughter. I would love her to just open up and read Catherine or see Catherine on the big screen and just be like, I could be her. So yeah, I would definitely love to see that.
Awesome. And you guys mentioned Queen of Cicadas, Planet Dead. What are they about? And where can people find them?
I mean, you can find The Queen of Cicadas on Amazon. It's a Flame Tree Press book. It's basically about a hate crime in 1950s Texas. Milagros is a migrant worker, and she's murdered on a farm. And the Aztec Queen of the Dead hears her death cries and comes back to bring her back to life, but also herself. And it gets taken back to it. It's an urban legend, the Queen of the Cicadas, La Reina de las Chicharas, that goes all the way to modern day, and you get to see how the whole urban legend plays out with the main character, Belinda. And Goddess of Filth, creature website. You can find me at VLatina London on Instagram and Twitter.
You can find all my books on Amazon. Planet Dead's on Amazon exclusively for like Kindle Unlimited. But you can go to sylvesterbarzey.com/books. I have like all the books and the anthologies that I've been in. Planet Dead is just about Catherine Briggs. She's a former Army lieutenant, and she's now an attorney. And she's coming home from her job, and then the zombie apocalypse happens. And she's like trying to find her family, but her choices kind of make a divide. She like drives off into the river to kill all these zombies, and that leads her family to believe she's dead. And they just kind of go two separate ways. And now it's just all about her trying to find her husband and her son again, and every pothole that she hits along the way. So, and Stitches is available everywhere ebooks are sold. It's wide, and yeah, it's just got a ton of creepy little stories in it that I just love. So yeah. And you can find me at Sylvester Barzey, like at Sylvester Barzey, yeah, everywhere. Yeah.
Awesome. To wrap things up, what are you guys working on next? Do you have any upcoming projects on the horizon? Anything that you are dying, no pun intended, to get to next?
Mestiza Blood is my short story collection that comes out in January, available for pre-order. And it's short stories about, the Chicana identity and a lot of horror through folklore. So you get La Lechuza, you get, a lot of crazy stuff. And I'm working on The Generational Curse of La Llorona. So that will be out with Del Rey Books 2023. So I can't wait to start the edits on that. And you can get my own version of La Llorona.
That's awesome. Right now I've been working with the Kindle Velo, which is like series kind of. So like every week there's like new chapters and stuff. And I have a book called Generation Slayer. So it's kind of like Mulan meets Buffy in a post-apocalyptic New York. So I've been working a lot with that, and the new episodes come out like every Tuesday and Thursday. And I've also been working on a tie-in to Planet Dead that focuses on Catherine's husband and his brother. And it's just about two brothers who are dealing with the apocalypse and dealing with their own sibling issues and trying to raise a little boy at the same time. So, yeah.
Awesome. No, I'm super. This all sounds so interesting. I know La Llorona. Yes, I'm Mexican American too, so I'm like, oh shit, like, I'm gonna go write this down. Yay! I really enjoyed Shutter, like the Lloronas on Shutter, the Guatemalan version.
Yes.
So I will keep my eyes out for yours.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you so much to both of you for having this conversation with me.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed learning more about your craft and about your books. Is there anything else that you might want to plug or add in before we finish our talk?
Nope. Just thank you for buying the book and reading it. And don't forget to leave a review, reviews or a rating, even if it's like an emoji or a thumbs up. Like, I liked it. Just please leave those reviews. They really do matter to writers.
Yeah, everything she said. Yes.
Awesome. I'll be leaving all the links down below so you can go check pre-order Goodreads their books. But I had a lot of fun. Thank you to everybody who tuned in and watched. This video will be live on my channel forever, so you can watch it. And I hope everybody watching has a really good rest of the day for Virtual Indie Book Fest and just life in general. And I hope you stay safe and stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.